The Sports on 580 Chiefs Instant Recap postgame show is live, coming your way with Brendan Dworzinski and Fulton Caster here with you following a dominant Chiefs victory, 44-23 over the San Francisco 49ers. The Chiefs with an important win to improve to 5-2 on the season. The 49ers, meanwhile, fall to 3-4. Fulton, let's get right into it. Obviously, a lot of awesome statistical performances in this game for the Chiefs. Couple moments that had you scratching your head a little bit, like say, I don't know, Sky Moore fumbling a punt and being put in that position. Once again, play calling thoughts, a little iffy here and there. Overall, though, a dominant win on Sunday for the Chiefs.
It really was overall. You're quite happy with the way it ended up at the end of the day. There were definitely some moments early on in the game where you were a little frustrated how things were going. A few play calling decisions, some personnel decisions that have you scratching your head. But overall, anytime you can start a game being down 10-0 early, particularly after one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes throw, just a completely ill-advised throw. It's still a great play by the 49ers team and come up with the pick on the play in of itself. But you spot them at 10-0 lead. You're really worried. You feel like it might snowball, might be a problem. And then to just rip off the way the offense performed after that, particularly against the San Francisco 49ers defense, who came in as one of the best defenses, not the best defense, and at least the entire NFC, if not the entire NFL at that point. So overall, while there are probably some nitpicky moments you can be frustrated with, you have to be impressed overall with the execution of the Chiefs offense overall, how great the offensive line looked today, and the fact that a 49ers team that has a tremendous pass rush only really got to Patrick Mahomes one time and only really threatened a couple of times all game. So overall, great execution for most of the team. Everyone performed well. A lot of the new acquisitions, you just missed Schuster had a good game. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had a couple of big catches. And, of course, Travis Kelce did what he always does. So overall, even the nitpicky moments, you could take them out. A very good, complete, overall dominating win for Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And pardon the constant changing in the lighting on my camera. I'm not actually sitting in the dark. The lights are on. The ring light is on. I'm not sure what. New computer, weird things happen. Anywho, you just have to be, you have to tip your cap to every element of this team, really. Special teams, okay, maybe not at every moment of the game. And again, I still don't understand the Sky Moore thing. A lot of stubbornness involved there, but you look at what Patrick Mahomes was able to do. You look at what the new guys at the receiver positions were able to do in this game, Fulton. You had a big game from Juju Smith-Schuster. You had a huge game from Marquez Valdez-Scantling as well. Just 3 receptions in the game, but he went for 111 yards, just under 100 yards for Travis Kelce. We know that Andy Reid was trying to get him the ball toward the end of the game as well, get him to that 100-yard threshold. They played great on offense, especially in the second half. Defense came up with the big plays. It was fun to see Frank Clark get involved, man. He got that safety, taking down Jimmy Garoppolo in the end zone late in the contest. Fun to see him get around the edge. Bummer that Dunlap got banged up a little bit. Chris Jones made some big plays throughout the game. It was a holistic effort to get the win on Sunday, and I think that's the most impressive thing to me, is that you can come back after that game against the Bills a week ago, in which you played well overall. And we were saying, I know you guys talked about it on Mic'd Up, Dan and I talked about it on 580 Sports Talk as well, that there was a lot to still be happy about with the team, even though you end up with that loss to the Bills. To come back and in at least 2 of 3 phases to play that well, still pick up the victory. That's overall an overwhelming win beyond just what's in the scoreboard for me.
And I'm right there with you. The fact that you played so well against Buffalo, a game you really felt like you had to win, it was going to be a tough win, and then just a few minor mistakes set you back completely, ends up losing that game. To come out and play so well overall in 2 of the 3 phases, offense and defense played so well. Special teams outside of the kickoff unit was just an absolute travesty all day in that entire game. But overall, the offense and defense played so well. It was great to see Frank Clark really showing up with some juice on that pass rush, particularly even on the safety, because that was just a straight speed rush on Trent Williams, and he got on the corner and made a play. And the blitzes were dialed up really well by Steve Spagnuolo. The defense overall in the coverage played a fairly good job today and did such excellent work. The new guys played well. And the biggest thing for me, though, what I'd say, at least on the offensive side of the thing of the game here, is the Chiefs are going to see a lot of man coverage this year. And we saw that weird increase in what the Bills did. And we saw a lot of man coverage from San Francisco. The thing the Chiefs need to do to prove to finally stop getting so much man is, can the receivers win one-on-one matchups to get separation? And today was a beautiful example of that. Travis Kelce did what he does. He gets open. That is something we know always happens. But Juju Smith-Schuster had a great day to show what he can bring to this team, which is simply getting a little bit of separation, but using his large body and large frame to make those contested catches, to be there for Patrick Mahomes. Even Marquez Valdez-Scantling had a back shoulder reception, even though it went completely through his hands and fell in his stomach and he just happened to roll with the ball on him. But still, they played so well in that game. And that was the biggest thing for me offensively was the run game still isn't where you need it to be. Not at all where it needs to be. And maybe McCole Hardman jet sweeps are now the best part of this run game. It seems to be with how well they played in this one. But the Chiefs' ability to consistently beat man covered against San Francisco is a great sign going forward, especially after that game against Buffalo, where they struggle with that separation a little bit.
Well, and I think, too, when you talk about the wide receivers and continuing to fill their roles going forward for the rest of this season, this game should be the blueprint for you, what the Chiefs need to do with a few different personnel on this team. McCole Hardman, he's not a wide receiver. He might be listed as a wide receiver on your depth chart, on your official Chiefs.com roster. He is more of a gadget player, and that's not even a criticism of him. Like you say, okay, Tavon Austin was a first-round pick. That's a career gadget player and punt returner. That's a little bit different. It's a compliment to McCole Hardman because when you get him the ball on jet sweeps, you have him run the ball, you get him the ball near the line of scrimmage so he can just use that speed and that shiftiness when he's out in the open field. That is important and that is vital to this team. That's an element that nobody else gives them to the degree that McCole Hardman gives them. If you're asking him to run a full route tree out of the slot or on the boundary, you're not going to get maximum return out of McCole Hardman. And we see this over and over, Fulton. We saw it at the end of last season. His rookie year was a little bit different because it was a total, well, what is this guy? What can he be? Defenses weren't totally ready for him at that point. That's a little bit different. But we saw it at the end of 2021. We've seen it so far in 2022. Get him the ball in different ways as opposed to just running, flags and corners and whatnot. That's not going to get you the best return for McCole Hardman. We saw that again in this game against the 49ers. Also, throw in Juju Smith-Schuster, the different ways you can get things to work out for him. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, again, he is at his most effective when you're using him in the vertical game. You want him going north and south, less east and west with MVS. He's a good blocker for his size. I mean, he's a tall guy, but he's pretty slender, as we obviously know. You can get him on the edge blocking, but as a receiver, you want him as your vertical threat. 3 catches for 111 yards. You're looking at approaching 40 yards per reception for him on the game. Use him in that way. Juju is a more versatile player than even I gave him credit for coming into this year. I was like, okay, yeah, he's a big slot. No, he can do more than that, and I think you've seen that, especially in the last 2 games. He had the big play last week against Buffalo, had a couple of really impressive big chunk plays in this game against San Francisco as well. And like you said, Travis Kelce, he can do everything. He is a wide receiver in a tight end's body who also, by the way, is one of the most underrated blockers in the NFL. And Sky Moore, you bring him along. You're going to find more ways, different ways to get him involved as time goes on. So I'm not too worried about that right now, as long as you've got Kelce and MVS and Hardman and Juju all filling roles where you can get the most out of them and the most value for what their skill set is. Hell, throw Justin Watson in there, man. He had a touchdown catch in this game. You're not going to use him a ton, but is he going to be a decent red zone weapon? We already know guys like Jody Fortson can be useful red zone weapons. It just feels like all these pieces, Fulton, for this offense are starting to come together. You see more comfortability with Mahomes. You see these guys all starting to take off, specifically when we talk about the newest additions through free agency, Juju and MVS. This was the kind of game that I think gave us a glimpse into what this offense truly can be as a finished product.
It really is, I think, a great glimpse in what this offense can be, getting all these pieces to perform, because that was the big thing about this offense, and it was going to need an evolution, need to be a little bit different and try to change things up with the personnel style of these receivers. And we talk about all the time that it takes time for guys to gel, and it takes time for everything to start working together. This is our first real glimpse in the fact that it might finally be starting to click, and could not come at a better time with the bye week coming up next week for them to really start putting some things together and get a little bit healthier with how banged up they are on all various sides of the football at this point. But this is what the offense needs to be. It's not going to be a massively dynamic big play offense anymore. It's going to have those moments, and we got to finally see it with the way that Marquez Valdez-Scantling was able to get open on a couple of big plays. One of them, Charvarius Ward just simply deciding not to run with MVS as he ran right by him, and then just some great moves over the middle and working to the boundary as well. And that's what he'll bring, is being your deep threat, being your deep guy. But Juju Smith-Schuster just gets it close and does good work after the catch. That's what we're seeing, this better iteration of the offense. The last piece, so to speak, of getting this offense working is solving the running game problem and trying to identify what's the best way. Because normally when we talk about the running game, we talk about it on Mic'd Up with myself and Jake LeBon. I know you and Dan Lucero talk about it on 580 Sports Talk. We discuss sometimes that maybe it's not the running backs, but it could be the blocking or the play calling. In this game today, and I'm usually trying not to be too hard on these backs, this was a running back issue game. Outside of Isaiah Pacheco had some great runs to where the offensive line did their job. The play calling was overall fairly good. There were still times where the running backs just were not executing the assignment overall. So if that's the last piece you need to get going for an Andy Reid offense, is just get a little bit better at running the football. If the Chiefs just keep on this trajectory of getting a little bit better and a little bit better, they're right back to being the Super Bowl contenders that we always think they can be.
So to the running game point, because we found out right before the game that we were going to see Isaiah Pacheco as your de facto starter for this competition. And yeah, he had a decent game, 8 carries for 43 yards. Here's what you got, though, out of your running backs in this game, actually running the ball. So take out 3 knees from Chad Henne and take out the 2 rushes for 28 yards and 2 scores for Mecole Hardman. Because while that is part of the running game, we're talking more about your typical handoff, sweep, toss play kind of running game, not the specialty stuff you do with Mecole Hardman. Your running backs, Pacheco, Edwards-Helaire, and McKinnon, gave you a grand total of 16 carries for 81 yards in the game. And that math checks out to about 5 yards a carry, which isn't terrible by any means. In fact, it's reasonably solid, but you would like to see a little bit more on an individual basis out of Pacheco, out of Edwards-Helaire. McKinnon, again, a little bit different because he had some dynamic plays in the passing game as well, but you want to see a little bit more out of them. And I think that's why you go with Pacheco here, right? Is because you want to give that group a little bit of a burst. This is the most he's been used so far here in his rookie season. It's his first official, again, quote unquote, start. Maybe he, with a few more live reps against first teamers, will be able to get that going a little bit more. And you would hope so, because while we know Andy Reid's never going to be run it right down their throat, Mr. Physicality, old school football, we also know they're going to need to be able to run the ball to at least burn off some clock in some key games later on in the season. That's what you want to do when you've got the lead, right? A team that has in recent history not been very good about closing out games, although they were here in week 7 on Sunday. You want to be able to run the ball, and I think that's what they're hoping they can get by giving some more live reps in important, crucial situations to Isaiah Pacheco.
That has to be what the case was, and it was a bit surprising. We learned late that Isaiah Pacheco was going to get the start and had taken a lot more first team's reps this past week or so. And it adds a little bit of burst to the run game, but you're right. The Chiefs are never going to be they're going to run it 40, 50 times in a game, and Mahomes will only throw it like 15 times. That's never what the Chiefs are going to be, but you're right. They have to find a way to run the football effectively, particularly to salt away games and salt away leads. And that has always been their biggest bugaboo, so to speak, is not being able to really find a way to get an effective running game going. I've defended Clyde Edwards-Helaire for, I think, his entire time since being drafted as a Kansas City Chief. But even I'm at the point of Isaiah Pacheco runs the hardest of the 3 guys, has some of the best burst among the 3 running backs. It might be time to give him just even more carries throughout the game. You can live with 16 carries at 5 yards a tote for a run game, but overall, you would like it better, not even necessarily on a yards per carry basis as a group, but one guy to really just try to be a standout lead back who you can just, when it's crunch time, you need to get it done, give the ball to and find a way to run out the clock in. Pacheco might become that guy, but I think if there's going to be any focus over this bye week outside of just simply get healthy, is it might be continuing to try and refine this run game and get it to where it needs to be, because it's still just a bit short.
Any other performances that really stand out to you about this game? I was keeping a close eye on the offensive line because I've been pretty hard on them on 580 Sports Talk, especially over the last week, really the last 2 or 3 weeks at this point. Defensively, we talked about that a little bit. The pass rush got home plenty in this game, and we have known for a long time, Fulton, you get pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo, he is going to make mistakes. And that play at the goal line where Joshua Williams got the interception off of Jimmy G just lobbing it up to the goal line to get picked off, that is a total, that is the effect of getting the pressure onto Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think that was well done by Steve Spagnuolo in terms of dialing up those blitzes. It's not a blitz if you don't dial it up, by the way. If you just send the blitz, no, you got to dial it up. That's really,
I'm with you 100% on that. You got to dial it up.
That's the only way it's a true blitz. So the way that Spags dialed it up, I thought situationally was really effective in this game too. And obviously you have to give credit to the players for their execution. Anything else really stand out to you about the performances today?
For me, on the defensive side of the football in particular, you had some standout performances, I think, at all 3 levels of what you would design that defense. On the defensive line, Chris Jones had a great day. That's just what he does at this point. This man is playing like a guy who he's playing at a contract year, and for him, the contract year is truly being undefeated at this point. Frank Clark shows some burst in a little bit. It's sad that Carlos Dunlap got dinged up at the end there because he showed a little bit of juice that he needed to do as well. Plus, got a couple of key knockdowns using his length, something he's done so great his entire NFL career. Nick Bold made a couple of stellar tackles and actually a good also pass defense on George Kittle there late in the game. Willie Gay came back and got a sack. He did great. And the secondary had moments where they had issues, but overall, you're putting a lot of young guys on corners and on islands. Joshua Williams comes away with an incredible pick, just reading the odds there, of Jimmy Garoppolo on a duck. L'Jarius Sneed played some great one-on-one coverage. Jalen Watson did his best in most of his situations. Juan Thornhill comes away with the late interception off Brock Purdy, which is, it is what it is. It counts in the stat books, but it's not as great as what you would want it to be at that point. But overall, I think at all three levels, you just had guys do just enough to come together to create a good, cohesive defensive performance. And that's all you have to ask out of this Chiefs defense when the offense plays this well, is you don't need anyone to be a hero. You don't need Superman out there. You just need just a ragtag group of guys coming together and making enough plays to get it done. And that's what they did today.
It was a great effort for the Chiefs, and this is what you want going into the bye week, right? You had the tough loss last week. If you compound that with a loss to a decent 49ers team who came out and they ran the ball really well in this game. And I was a little bit worried early on. Christian McCaffrey looked really good. He played more than I thought he would. I thought he'd be pretty much goal line situations only. He was effective in this game. Jeff Wilson had some moments as well. But for the 49ers to come out, look good early, and the Chiefs to withstand every single one of those punches and then throw the counter every time and take advantage in the second half, that is the exact kind of momentum you want going into the bye week. Get rested up, and then you've got a big stretch of games coming up, starting with the Tennessee Titans in Week 9. We'll be talking all about this game coming up on Mic'd Up and 580 Sports Talk on Monday on 580 WIBW. Follow Fulton on Twitter at FultonCaster. You can follow myself at BrendanDZW, as you see on the screen. Fulton will be joined by Jake Laban for Mic'd Up coming up Monday from noon until 3, every single weekday, in fact, from noon until 3 on the Sports Voice of Kansas. Meanwhile, you can join myself and my partner Dan Lucero on 580 Sports Talk 3 to 6 every weekday on 580 WIBW. So until Monday shows, when we continue the recap from Week 7, the Kansas City Chiefs now 5-2 on the year after knocking off the San Francisco 49ers. He's Fulton Caster. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We'll talk to you Monday coming up on 580 WIBW.